two things come to mind. One is television was always very standalone. X-Files were standalone with some mythology in that. CBS, which is for your grandparents mostly, is still that and very content with that and likes that. And if you can be on a show and write that and like it, it's great because those rerun very well, both here and internationally. And so the networks and the writers like that because they make a lot of money for that. Most television become much more serialized is the first thing. And the second part is the velocity of that serialization is also sped up. You know, on X-Files, it took Mulder 7 seasons to find out what happened to his sister. And you would never get to do that now.
Right. That would be like the season 1 arc.
It would have been. You know, on S.H.I.E.L.D. came out of the movie, Agent Coulson had been killed, and he shows up, and so the mystery of what happened to him was something that we thought, oh, we'll arc that over the course of the season, which was 22. And you know, you go online and after 5 episodes, like, boo, this sucks, we still don't know, this is awful, why are you hiding it? And we thought there was interesting things, because for us it wasn't, the answer wasn't the interesting part, it was like what the character goes through to get there. Still, we moved it all up, and so you're revealing things at 7 and 11, and by 14, most of it was on the table. So I think the Netflix shows, and binge watching in general, you know, you get on and you watch, you know, whether it's Breaking Bad or Friday Night Lights or anything that's serialized that, you know, you sit down in Orange is the New Black and all, you watch them all, and so people want more and more faster. And so I find the velocity of our storytelling has increased a lot.
Yeah.
And the thing about Breaking Bad that I think is amazing is they burn through so much story and they still have more. And usually you burn through story and then you have nothing. And I worked with Vince back in the X-Files and he was always awesome, but just I'm so impressed with the quality of stories and the amount of story that they would do. There used to be much, you know, the pace was slower. And then the other thing is the serialization, just arcing stuff out. We go in, I have to tell them, you know, we're doing 22. Here's the arc of our 13, and sort of give them character, emotional arcs as well as plot arcs. And then for the back, and you know,
it's actually you don't want to even wish that on yourself to have to figure this shit out. Seriously, I mean, like, it just even as a simple family comedy, it used to be one family and the other thing. Now modern families, like, you know, 3 families broken up and all, you know, it's just. But then there's also
twist that no one saw coming.
But then there's also the killing, and you know they just didn't even solve it in 1 season. I'm just watching about the first season of that. Now the first 9 episodes, mind blower. I mean, they have turns, but you know it's not like it's so much better than solving the case of the week. That CBS model that we went through was brutal. You know, trying to keep that interesting or. But it is really, really harder on the mind to try to do what people are doing in that now, in that accelerated in the arcs, and it's fun when you trip into something that trips you through. You know, several things. You go, oh my God, this works here, there, that, and you're really playing like 3-dimensional Chinese checkers in a multi-layered multiplex or something. That you can really get down just thinking like at times, like, how can I? You know, get through this and know that that's okay. Like, you cannot imagine, like, how many times all of us, I'm sure, thought we can't get our way out of this little box here. Just this one little story point here, and yet you got to solve a whole, you know, 6-hour miniseries or a 13-episode, whatever. So, and learn to enjoy that some days all you will know is what you don't know. I mean, you'll literally go. And one good thing about having a partner, if you don't have a partner, just write what your questions are over here, like da-da-da-da. You know, go forward on the script, and then just da-da-da. Don't let that, you know, vex you too much that you don't know all those answers. Be happy that day you found there's 5 things I don't know that I do need to know the answers to, and you know, you wake up with a cup of coffee tomorrow, and you know 1 or 2 of them will start to break down. So it's really a depressing thing, and then it's the thrill. But you cannot always be good, and you cannot always know answers. Sometimes you got to just know the problem. So. Right.
I think I was really precious about needing to write by myself before I was staffed, and now I can't imagine, like when you get into those holes. My biggest advice is like, go find friends and present those problems to them and figure it out together. There's nothing better than having somebody else's brain to borrow, because they'll see a solution. You'll be so stuck in a dark corner, and suddenly there's a light that you never would have come into.
Find a writing partner. That's my version of that. If you do write alone, or just consider someone.
Yeah.
When you're coming up with a pilot idea, whatever it is, when you're coming up with a series idea, when you're going in, they want to know what the pilot is, but what they really want to know is what the series is.
Yep.
And so you need to have the general beats of your pilot. It's a I mean, I love the Sixth Sense kid growing up to be Big Lebowski, or how you do it, dope smoking ghost whisperer.
Yeah.
So that's a concept that you get, and you can pitch a couple cool ideas about that, and you can tell them who the characters are. But then they're also going to know the series. At least, I mean, it's changing. It used to be network. They want to know that there's 100 ideas behind it.
Yep.
And that's different now. And miniseries are back, which is really cool. And you can do shorter runs, but they want to know that you have more answers. And you don't have to know it all. And one of the things we do is we set up these big tent poles. And we think this happens in 5, this happens in 10, 15, and 20. And it's almost like it's more interesting if you don't know how to get there ahead of time, because your preconception is very limited. Whereas when you're going to do it, you find something here and you go back and you put it in there, and it becomes more fluid. But you want to have sort of some big answers, and you want to say, and at the end of the season we end with this, boom, which suggests a new season. And so you just want to have those when you go in, and that's almost as important as I have a really good pilot right here.
Sometimes a way to get there is to tell them what the show is really about, like not just on the surface. Like, like I'll just use Deadbeat just to, it's a show about a guy who's a medium who talks to ghosts, and he's kind of like schlubby, and he's kind of he's a deadbeat. And then on the other side you have his rival, who is like the beautiful blonde British chamomile white, who is also a medium, but when he meets her he realizes that she's a fraud. But she's the successful one, and he is like basically like just scraping by a living. And when we wrote this script, my writing partner and I, we were kind of like we were the the main guy. We were just kind of like scraping by. I was like filming weddings and like just living kind of paycheck to paycheck and not really knowing what to do with this talent, and yet watching all these people who just didn't really seem to have that much more talent, if any, sort of like getting by on like schmoozing and like being good with people and good in a room, and we pitched it like that to these, and that is what sort of resonated with them. That like even with outside of like the ghost industry, in any industry, you can relate to that kind of thing.
That's great. The one thing